Thanks very much, and thanks to CITA for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this morning. Just briefly about myself, I'm an architect by background and managing partner of Arcdox. We're a BIM consultancy practice based in Dublin. I also coordinate and chair a number of industry groups with a special interest in BIM. Our company Arcdox has been working with project teams and companies and individuals over the last 6 years to help implement BIM through consultancy advice, production, support and training. And I suppose over that time we've worked on about 60 projects, we've probably trained about 600 plus people, so hopefully I can bring a bit of that experience to the conversation today. And you're going to hear some great presentations from Anna and Michael about the details of what an EIR contains and how to respond to it. So I was going to really look at the why. Why is an EIR important? And I suppose the most obvious answer is that it's the first step of the PAS 1192 process. Yeah, and if we were an industry that followed standards and best practice, that would be the end of the presentation. We could all go home. But obviously that doesn't seem to be a very compelling reason for people to implement the EIR. So I was going to look at it a different way. I was going to look at from our experience over the last 6 years and share some of that experience with you on projects. And I'd love to say that out of the 60 projects we worked on, that BIM went swimmingly well on all of them. But unfortunately, for most of them, at some point in time, BIM has broken down. And the number one reason for that is that there's no requirement to do it. So people could choose to opt in or opt out, and many chose to opt out. Now, I'm not saying that we didn't get some benefits out of BIM. So certainly the parties we worked with got benefits. So we worked with designers who wanted to use BIM as a more efficient way of producing documentation, and they did that, and they got that benefit, and then they printed everything off and handed the drawings over to the contractor and kept the model to themselves. And the process stopped. We've worked with contractors where we've converted drawings back to models, in some instances, and where they wanted to use BIM as a method to coordinate the works on site and eliminate some of the problems, the usual problems, which they did, and they achieved that benefit, and then they printed the drawings off and handed that over to the client and kept the model to themselves. So definitely there was benefit to certain parties, but overall to the project, to the client, there was very, very little benefit. So that's why I think a requirement is important. So since we're talking about clients' requirements, what is it that clients want? Well, I can tell you from our experience, clients don't want BIM. They don't understand what BIM is, they don't understand why it's important. But when you sit down and talk to a client, you'll find out very quickly they do want what BIM delivers. Better coordination, better communication, improved design, coordination, better performance, all these things. Clients want these things. So you could say that clients do want BIM, they just don't know they want BIM. But what they really are interested in is they want to know what they're getting. They want to know, what are we building? They want to understand what it is they're getting, what they're building. They want to know, when are we going to get it? They want to know, how much is it going to cost? They're interested in quality. They want to know, is it going to be well designed? Is it going to be durable? How much is it going to cost to run and operate? They're interested in value for money. They don't want to pay more than they expect. They don't want to compromise on what it is they want, when they want it, how much they're willing to pay for it. And they want certainty. For most clients, building isn't their core business. They want the professional teams that they hire to effectively manage their risks on their behalf. So you could sum it up and say, clients want better buildings, built quicker, built cheaper. And you're probably all thinking to yourselves, is that a reasonable request? Is that even possible? And I suppose the traditional response to that is that the process is what it is. So something has to give. Either you've got to spend more time at it, spend more money, or compromise on what it is you want. But I suppose what BIM is allowing is an opportunity to say, well, maybe we can improve the process. Maybe we can be better at doing what we do, become lean, and increase the value and quality of what it is we deliver, and cut out the waste. And there's an enormous amount of waste in the construction process. At all stages, at design, at construction, all these things that are listed there, and I won't read through the list, but all of these things are happening on projects all the time. All of these things cost money. None of these things adds any value to the project. And organizations that measure these things would say that over 30% of the cost of construction is waste. That's an enormous percentage. When we're haggling over 1% design fees or 1% construction profit margins, we should really be doing something about this waste. And clients don't want to pay for this waste. I think they want to convert some of this back into quality and value. And if you look at this list of things, you'll see that at the root of this waste is the quality of information that we as an industry produce. So information, building information, has real value. It's an asset that should be nurtured and protected and maintained like any other asset because it's required for so many things. It's required for, obviously, the effective delivery of construction, but after construction it's required for the daily operations, for preventative reactive maintenance. It's required for transactions, for sales, for leases. It's required for analysis, decision making. And the quality of that information is going to profoundly affect the outcomes and the performance of those tasks. So in my opinion, information should be digital, it should be searchable, it should be accessible to people, it should be accurate. And unfortunately, building information as we know today is the exact opposite of what I just said. It's predominantly paper-based, it's very difficult to search, very difficult to query. It's unlikely that it's accurate. And in its paper format, it's very difficult to maintain and update, unless you reproduce it. So the point I want to make about BIM is it's not something that we add on to a traditional process. It's not something we do extra. It's an alternative methodology. The traditional methodology is where our productive and intellectual input goes into the production of lots of paper-based documents. And the BIM process is where the intellectual and productive input goes into building the virtual building. Yes, we can get all the paper-based documents out of the BIM process, but these are derived from BIM. So the usefulness of BIM is that you're creating the information once in the digital model, and that if you have to make a change, is that you make the change once in the digital model. So everything is managed in the one place. So the one process is time-consuming, it's prone to error, it's problematic. The other process is, sorry, just go back there, is efficient, it's better, better quality of documentation, better outcomes on projects. So, we've seen a lot, and the reason I'm mentioning this is we've seen a lot of people try and add BIM to what they do at the moment. So they'll go off and they'll design in 2D, and they'll have some guy in the corner of the office sort of converting the drawings into a model. There's no benefit in that. You're just adding cost. You're adding to a traditional broken process. You'd really need to think about changing the way you work. So a lot of talk so far about information, and you'll hear the saying, it's all about the I in BIM, the information. Actually, I want to say it's also about the M. It's about the money. And if you look at the driver in the UK, it's not because the UK government are fascinated by technology. It's because they've seen as a client they can get significant improvements in cost, value, and performance. Now, my challenge to you, you might be thinking, well, we don't work in the UK, so this isn't relevant to us. You show me a client that's not interested in significant improvements in cost, value, and performance of buildings. So once clients understand this and get this, it's going to be a requirement, whether it's a government requirement or not. And also, what's interesting, if you look at the UK strategy beyond the 2016, it's about lowering the cost of construction. It's about building buildings faster. It's about improving the emissions. So these guys believe we can build buildings better, quicker, and cheaper. But actually, the big prize is the bottom one there, exports. They've realized that the construction output, global construction output, is going to go from 8.5 billion to 12 billion. And if they can get an industry that can produce buildings quicker, better, cheaper, they can get a bigger slice of that pie. Trillion, sorry. Yeah, and what's really interesting is the leadership that's shown right from the cabinet office down, to push industry to become better at what it does, to become world leaders in BIM. And then we get to Ireland, right? And yes, we've got some interesting language in the Forfos report in 2013, sort of highlighting that BIM would be something that would improve competitiveness, improve innovation, promote off-site construction, lean construction, green construction. And we've got this similar language in the Construction 2020 report. But is anybody taking this seriously at government level in Ireland? And the recent article in the Irish Building Magazine, which you'll see on your chair there, and the comment by the one guy that they've appointed to improve the way we spend public money says, we're not keen to impose BIM at the lower end of the market. So in an effort to protect the lower end of the market, basically, we're not going to do anything. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox there. This is going to happen. This is happening in Europe. There's been changes in the EU procurement directives. Countries, every week now you hear about another country that's sort of implementing BIM at sort of government level. Spain, France, Germany. So it's not just about the UK. The EU are pushing this. The EU standards are developing. What's the opportunity and what's the threat? I suppose the opportunity for the Irish market is that if we become good at this, we can win work in the global market, the EU market. The threat is that if we don't get good at this, we're going to very quickly start losing work. If we have European companies who are better at what they do, who can build buildings quicker, cheaper, we're going to start losing even work in Ireland. And we're going to continue to fall behind in our skills and efficiencies. So we really need to do something. So coming back to the requirements, BIM requirements, the EIR, which comes first? Over the last 6 years, we've spoken to clients and we said, why aren't you asking for BIM? I mean, it's a no-brainer. You get better projects, and they say, well, we don't think the industry is ready to deliver. And then you speak to people in industry and say, why aren't you doing BIM? And they say, well, we're not going to invest because clients aren't asking for it. So you have this bizarre situation where we're just all sitting there waiting for somebody to move. So who's going to move first? Well, I think the clients are best placed to move first. And what can clients do? Very easy, just ask for BIM. Remember the golden rule? He who has the gold makes the rules. If you're the client, you're paying already for information, you're paying already for a building process. Just ask for better information, ask for a better process. If only it was that simple. What's the catch? So the catch is, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen if there isn't a clearly defined and managed process put in place that requires every participant in the project to make their contribution of information in this way. We need a standard as an industry. We need to follow a standard. And the brilliant thing is, in Ireland, we don't even have to make any investment. Our colleagues in the UK have spent the last 5 years and a lot of money developing standards. All we've got to do, and we don't even have to pay for them because they've made them freely available. All we have to do is pick them up and start using them. PAS 1192 is a 60-page document. If everybody just downloaded a copy and started reading it and understanding it and using it, we'd be well on our way. And the EIR, as I said at the beginning, is the very first step in the PAS 1192 process. And that's why it's important. It determines how you're going to select your team, even at pre-qualification stage. It determines some commercial things that have to happen and put in place as a project, and we'll cover this over the year. It determines how teams are going to respond to tenders, and the documentation that they have to provide to help you make your selection in terms of pre-contract building execution plans and templates. It determines how the team sits down at the beginning of the project and collectively develops the project post-contract execution plan. It determines the deliverables on the project. such as Kobe, Uniclass, soft landings, etc. So I won't go through all these things, but I just wanted to mention what the RAI have done to date to support industry. We are obviously part of the CITA BIM group. We've organized events, we've written articles, we've put stuff on our website, we've promoted PAS 1192 at council level in the RAI. We've gone out and got legal opinion on the CIC protocol and its application to Irish contracts, the Irish public works contracts, the Irish private contracts. We've taken the standards in the UK and we've developed some templates to make it easier for small companies to start using this process. So we've did a template BIM execution plan, a template EIR. We're avid supporters of CITA and we've been working with Enterprise Ireland. But there's a lot to do, and I don't think it's up to the RAI to do everything. I'd like to see Engineers Ireland, the ACI, the SCSI, other organizations to start contributing to this process and working together. We all have to get out of our silos, and BIM is about collaboration. So just to finish off, I just wanted to mention a few kind of things we've learned, tips and tricks over the last 6 years, or what you should have in your EIR to drive good behaviors. The one thing is, make it absolutely clear that to everybody that BIM to level 2 to PAS 1192 is going to be used. In all communications. We get into projects and we're halfway through the project and then people say, oh, I didn't realize we were doing BIM on this project. So they've signed a contract and everything, and then only then they realize they have to, and then they say, well, we didn't allow for that. So make it clear before you even appoint people. When you do appoint people, make sure you allow enough time to develop the model. We've seen crazy things where people spend months negotiating the contract, and then they sign it and they expect the builder to be on site on Monday, developing the works. So there's no time to develop or interrogate the model. You must allow time to build the building twice. Build it virtually first and then on site. We've seen projects where they're building the model after they've built the works on site. It's crazy stuff. So you need to allow time for that. Make sure as far as possible all the drawings are derived from the model. Make sure people aren't using a pseudo-BIM process where they're developing drawings separate from the model, because then the model has no value really. Avoid duplication of effort. We've seen some crazy stuff where designers are not handing the models over to contractors, and contractors are having to spend a lot of time and money redoing the model. I mean, what is the point of that? We need to have it in our contracts, in our protocols, that we need to share information. Pre-contract BIM execution plans. Request them when you go out to tender for design services, for construction services. Make sure people sort of give you a detailed response of how they're going to deliver BIM on your project. And it really helps to have a template. Otherwise, you'll get one party giving a short paragraph of what they're going to do and another party giving you a 20-page document. How do you compare those two responses? So give people a template of the things you want to know about their delivery process and their capability when you're assessing tenders. Make sure you include in the prelims, in your tender specification, for IT infrastructure on site, so that so the contractor provides projection facilities in the meeting room, so you can actually look at the model, that you can have Wi-Fi around site, so you can walk around with your iPad and have access to the information, that you're looking for. So points set out and scanning during the process to capture how the works are progressing. The next thing is make sure that the traditional submittals or shop drawing process includes BIM, so that you're not getting people doing 2D drawings just to get a submittal in and then coming back later to do the model. That the model is actually developed as part of the submittal process. Then make sure you have something in place that any changes that occur during construction gets captured in the model, so that when you get to the end of construction, you have an actual as-built model rather than as designed. Lastly, try and get all the related documentation. So not all the information can be in the model, but related documentation should at least be cross-referenced to the model. So the safety file, the owner manual, should have references, there should be links in the model to those specific documents. Other things clients could consider is, if you're going to get somebody to take on the role of project information manager, which is one of the roles set out in the standard, on the design side or the construction side, you'll also need somebody internally who can talk to that person. So you need a client information manager. You might consider converting existing data into BIM at the start of a project. If you're doing a major extension to existing building or a refit, get the data converted, 2D data, and then let the design teams work in BIM from the start. As a client, you should really have a strategy about laser scanning. A lot of scanning is going on during the project, but often the clients are not getting that valuable data back. So have a strategy in your documents that at least any scan data that happens before or during or after the construction is collected, and so that you have that valuable data. If you're the type of client who does repeat work, like let's say education or hospitals, that kind of thing, you might consider producing standard object libraries or templates that you can make available to your project teams. I mean, there's no point in getting every project, every component of every hospital modeled over and over again by design teams. So like the NHS that does in the UK, they have an activity database that has all the components that they want in hospitals, and they make that available to project teams. Because this is new to industry, as a client you might consider at the start of a project facilitating BIM workshops and maybe even BIM training to help bring people along, rather than just expecting everybody to come up to speed straight away. You might look at online collaboration tools. There's fantastic tools out there nowadays for collaborating on projects in the cloud. So you might consider it as a project. And during construction, you might look at some field tools for inspections, for quality control, for safety inspections, etc. So those are just a few things. I'm sure there's lots more. I mean, we're all in a process of learning about how this works. And I'm sure during the Q&A, some people might have some other ideas of what makes up a good EIR. So to summarize, the EIR is important. I hope you got that out of the talk. It's the one document that will drive good behavior in the process through design, through construction. It's the one document that everybody has to respond to. As a client, be very specific as to what you want, or you might not get it. And don't assume that BIM is commonplace. It's not enough, and we've seen this. People have one paragraph, in their requirements. We want BIM. What does that mean? So be very specific and make sure as a client you're asking for BIM as a process, not a deliverable. Because we've seen projects where they just go through the standard process, and at the end they send the drawings to China and get it converted to a model. And none of the benefits of BIM, of coordinating works, of eliminating problems and eliminating waste, all that kind of thing, all that benefit is lost. So you want BIM to be a process that's used throughout design, construction. And it is all about the information and how that information is used by all the stakeholders in the project delivery cycle. So I hope that's helped, and thanks very much.
Thanks, Bob.